Let's talk about sprockets. Man, I get asked about sprockets all the time. You know, what gearing do I need to run? What's best for my bike? What's everyone else doing? You guys need to stop asking that question and really figure out what are you looking for out of your bike. That's like having somebody else pick out the color of paint that you're going to put on your bike. It's your bike. You do what you want with it. And I'm going to do my best to explain to you how to figure out where you need to be in your own little personal struggle. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, and what you're going to hear me say a lot, is final drive ratio. Okay, that number is really all you need to be able to figure out where you want to be. Okay, so what I suggest to anybody when they buy a bike is the first thing you need to do is obviously get the suspension set up and for your weight and everything else. But the second thing that you need to do is you need to write down your stock sprocket count, front and rear. Okay, so you need to know your front number and you need to know your back number. And what you're going to do with that number is you're going to divide the front and divide it by the rear. Okay, so let's assume we're just talking about my bike. All right, I have a 2012 Yamaha R1. This is going to apply, the numbers that I'm giving you are going to apply for 09 to 14 for my bike. But when we're talking about final drive ratio, it's going to apply to any bike that's got a front and rear sprocket. So it doesn't matter if you've got a Yamaha, a Kawasaki, a Honda, or the Suzuki peeking back there. It doesn't matter what you have. As long as you have a front and rear sprocket, this is going to mean the world to you. Okay, so final drive ratio. Like I said, that is your front sprocket tooth count divided by your rear. Now, what does that number mean at the end of the day? Okay, so first let me explain what the numbers mean. Okay, so you need to have your stock final drive ratio, which on my bike is 0.361. Okay. That's my front, which is a 17, and the rear, which is a 47, divided by each other. Now, from here, the bigger the number that I get when I start changing sprockets, the more top end I'm going to have. The lower the number is going to be, the more bottom end that I have. And that's all relative to my factory final drive ratio. Okay. Just because my final drive ratio from the factory is 0.361, and let's assume that one's 0.452, doesn't mean that bike has overall more top end than my bike does. It's because the gearing and the transmission on that bike is different than this one. And so they can play with their sprocket sizes and be different from each other. But at the end of the day, bike for bike, if we made the same horsepower, we would probably have about the same top end. Okay, so don't go comparing your number like dick size to your best friend and saying, oh, my bike's got more top end. No, that's not the case. That's not how any of this works. Okay, so again, my stock tooth count is 1747. That gives me a number of 0.361. From here, I need to figure out, what do I want out of my bike? Okay, a really popular mod to this generation of bike, this bike specifically, is going -1 in the front. So that changes that 0.361 number to a 0.340. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so like we talked about, the lower the number, the more bottom end you're going to have. So that gives this bike more bottom end, mid-range power. Top end, we're going to sacrifice a little bit because you can't have it both ways. You can't, and I get that asked that a lot. It's like, well, I want more acceleration, but I don't want to lose top end. Well, sweetheart, that's not how this works. You're going to have to sacrifice something. And I can't make that decision for you. You're going to have to figure out what it is you want on your bike. Me personally, I don't like doing real high speed, long top end runs. To me, that's boring. I don't know. I like corners. I like getting off of a roll really fast. I like coming out of a corner as quick as I can. Leaving the apex, coming back onto the throttle, and just mashing it as I'm coming out. That's what I love. That's me personally. That's my thing. That's what gets me off at night. I like that. So, but if you're a lowered stretch Busa and you want, more top end because you like to do rolls from like a 60 roll, and you just want to be able to smash kitties and just fucking ruin people, what you're going to need to do is you're probably going to want more top end. And so you're going to have to figure out, okay, is factory enough, or do I want to go above factory, or do I want to go just below factory but still not sacrifice not too much top end? So me personally right now, I'm at 1542. So, and stock is 1747. So I'm actually -2, -5. Well, why would I do something like that? That's crazy. It's madness. So what is that? How does that even make sense? When we're talking about sprockets, we're also talking about weight, and those sprockets move. So we're talking about rotational mass, and connected to those sprockets is a chain. So that's weight as well. And we're slinging that around. And me personally, what I wanted to do is I wanted to cut down on that weight. Because I'm running such a small front sprocket and such a small rear sprocket, I was actually able to even cut down the chain some. Actually, a lot. I think I took 4 links, maybe more than that out of my chain. I don't remember. It's been a minute. So I was able to take some weight out of that too. But my final drive ratio number is actually not as aggressive as what the most popular mod to this bike is, which is that -1. I'm still not as aggressive as that. So stock is 0.361, a -1 is 0.340, and I'm actually at 0.357. So I was able to save weight, gain a little bottom end, and not sacrifice too much top end. Because here recently I have been doing, and not really my thing again, but I have been doing more top end pulls. Not top end, I want to say, I very rarely see anything over 150. I mean, that's just, I don't like it. It's not my thing. All this is obviously done in Mexico, and sometimes, it's just not what I like to do. But, so before the -2, -5, I was actually -2, -4, which gave me a lot more bottom end, which got me closer to the -1. So -2, -4 is almost like a -1 front on this bike, but you save a ton of weight, and that's what's awesome about it. Again, I'm never going to be able to tell you what you need to do with your bike. You're going to have your own personal internal struggle and figure out, well, do I want to lose bottom end, or do I want to gain top end? Do I want to lose a little bottom end? Or do I want to lose a little top end and gain a little bottom end? I mean, that's really going to be your decision. If you're drag racing, you want to get to like 130, 140 as quick as you can. So I would just say, plan your gearing accordingly. Don't go something, stupid tall and or stupid small and then expect, to be quick in the quarter. You're going to have to really play with the numbers. And another website that I really like too is Gearing Commander. You can actually get on there and it'll give you a good idea of where every gear is even going to be. What your top speed in first, what your top speed in second, third, fourth, fifth. It's going to tell you what that speed is going to approximately be. Obviously, it's going to differ a little bit. You can even put in your tire sizes. So if you've got a 190/50 or 190/55 or 180/50 or a 200/50, you're going to be able to put in those numbers too, and that's going to affect your speed as well. All that stuff matters. So I hope this video helps. Again, like I said, I run a Facebook, I help run a Facebook page, R1 owners, which if you have an R1, you need to be on there. A ton of great information, giveaways, stuff like that. But I see these questions all the time, and it's the same answer. No one can tell you what you need to run. I can tell you what's good on this bike, by what I like, but nobody can tell you whether you have, like I said, a Yamaha. It doesn't matter what you have. Nobody's going to be able to tell you what needs to be on your bike. You're going to have to figure that out. So again, I hope this video helps you. Just remember, once you get your stock numbers, anything from there forward, the bigger the number, the more top end, the lower the number, the more bottom end. Just remember that, and that's all you need to know to figure out where you need to be. Now, I've had this bike since 2012, so it's taking me 5+ years to figure out where this bike needs to be. And I have sprockets for days up there. I've probably got 7, 8 rear sprockets. I maybe have 3 or 4 fronts. So this is an ever-changing thing. Like if I go to the Tail of the Dragon, or if I go do a track day, this gearing is going to change. It's not going to stay the same. I'm going to swap it around, and that's the fun part. You can change your bike on the fly, whether you want more top end or bottom end. I mean, it's really cool. So play around with it, figure out what's awesome for your bike, figure out what's awesome for you, and if you have any questions, I'll help out as much as I can. I can give you some recommendations on this bike, that bike, that bike, that bike. I mean, I can give you some ideas of where, is a good number to be at. But again, cut down on some weight. If you want to do a -1, figure out if you can do a -2, -4, and have the same ratio or close to it, and cut a ton of weight. Why wouldn't you do that? Also, I can sell you chain and sprockets. I own knoxracing.com, and I can get you any kind of a sprocket chain kit that you're looking for. We're actually working with a really cool company. I'll do a little bit of a plug for him. Billet Performance Products. They make a really sick, and it's too dark, but they make a really sick rear sprocket. And I can put some info in there about that too, so you can have it. But yeah, if you have any questions on any bit of the setup, just let me know. Oh, one other really, really good point, and then I'll promise I'll stop talking. The chain guide. So because my front and rear sprocket sizes are so small, it really makes this gap here a lot less, because they're turning and the radius around it is just less. So if you go and you start playing with sprockets, you may have to do some fancy Dremel work to your chain guide, top and bottom, because that can create a bind point. When I first did this, I was spinning the rear wheel. After it was all done, I kept hearing a little bit of a creak, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's rubbing on the guide, because it would come off the front sprocket and it would hop up to the guide, go down, and then it would drop down and then back over to the sprocket. So it created a bind point, but I was able to fix all that. I'm a little bit set in my ways now, because obviously I can't go taller and taller too much, because then the chain won't set on the guide. So yeah. And then your front sprocket, honestly, guys, I probably wouldn't go any smaller than a 15 front. I know guys that run 14s, so I can't say that. I do know guys that run 14s, but me personally, that's a really tight turning radius. I probably wouldn't do that. I think even the newer R1s come with a 16 front, and I've heard of guys doing -2s. And actually, I know a guy that's got this gen bike, and he's got a -3 front, and then he's really super tall in the rear. But again, he drags, so that's what he's looking for. He's just looking to get to 130, 140 as quick as he can and call it a day. So again, if you have any questions on any of this, just let me know. I'll help you out as much as I can. And thanks, guys. Appreciate it.